All right, we are live. Hey, welcome everyone. Leah, thanks for kicking us off in the chat here. As we kind of just give a minute and people start to join, let us know where you're tuning in from. Really excited to talk to you about building an AI first content engine, content engineering, doing some great demos today. Really excited. Ryan, welcome to the stream here. Really excited to have you here. Where are you coming in from?
I am in a suburb of Kansas City, and it is a beautiful day out. We've got kind of some crisp November weather coming in, but the sun's out, so I am hyped to be sharing all this stuff with you guys.
Yes, this has been really fun to prep with you. And, believe it or not, this is like the first time that we here at Zapier have talked about this topic. And I got to say, it is popular. I think we had a little over 5,000 registrants. We got a lot of people on the call right now. So I think this is a topic we'll keep hitting because it seems really interesting. And I know it's one that's near and dear to our hearts.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to dive deep into it because I think it's such a new thing that people have heard of it, but they don't really know what it is. So I'm excited to kind of tell them what I think about it.
And look at all these places in the chat. That's super fun. I've seen Nigeria, Philippines, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We've got New York, cold London. Welcome, welcome. Bulgaria, cool. Oh, awesome. South Africa, Sweden, a bunch from the US. I'm coming to you live from San Francisco.
Nathan, I am in Overland Park, actually. Yes, nice. I am in. That's hilarious. Yeah, we have a smallish tech scene in Kansas City, but it's nothing like the big cities. So it's hilarious to see a city I actually know.
Well, awesome. Do really quick intros. I'm Ryan. I've been working at Zapier for 3 years. In that time, I've run the product marketing team and the brand teams. And right now, I focus on a lot of our AI transformation programs. And I'm coming to you live from San Francisco here. Ryan, you want to do a little intro?
Yeah, so my name is Ryan McCready. I am senior content engineer at Demostack. I've been in the content game ever since college. I worked for my college newspaper doing like digital writing, digital marketing, all that stuff. And I've been at different SaaS companies throughout the year. So I've had a very, very deep understanding of how content gets produced, what makes good content, all that stuff. And then just building automations at all of those stops that have kind of led me to this AI first content engineering role.
Cool. Yeah, and you and my wife are alums of Reforge, which is a funny connection to make as well. So
yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, let's dig in. We've got some slides to go through, but really want to get into the demos with Ryan. Let me go through some housekeeping here. First important thing to know, the webinar is being recorded. You can actually access the recording from this URL that you entered today. We will also email you after with a recording as well. So you've got that. There's a questions tab in the platform here as well. Ask your questions there as you go. I will monitor the chat, especially during the demos. So we'll try and make those as interactive as possible. If you have any kind of glitches or streaming issues, Google Chrome is the best browser for Livestorm, and that'll kind of give you the smoothest experience. Best thing to do before switching browsers is just a hard refresh. Yes, Leah, we are all Ryan, which brings me to the most important point here, which is why is Ryan the best name ever? An icebreaker for you all. Let's discuss.
Yeah, it's I know way too many people named Ryan in marketing. I joke with my Ryan friends that we need to have like a Ryan-based marketing conference each year because there's so many of us. And like you even said, there's what, I think 18 at Zapier right now.
There is 13 Ryans, and we have a Slack channel internally called the Council of Ryans, where we talk about nothing important at all, but it's a very important Slack channel. Great. Well, let's get into the agenda. We'll do a little bit of like what is content engineering, go through some frameworks for building with AI, and then we're going to get into the demos and some pre-submitted questions that y'all sent in, and we'll also do live Q&A here as well. I think we're here because this is like a fact of marketing life, which is, dang, creating and distributing great content is hard work, right? It takes a lot. It takes a combination of effort and taste and experimentation and so many things. And I think what we're here to talk about today is really like how can AI automation help? And I think it makes it easier, but that doesn't mean it's easy, even as you start automating it. And that's if your team is really big, or your team is really small and you have a ton of constraints. It's still really hard, even
It's
if we're
very hard. Yeah, and it's only getting harder. I think when I got my start in the marketing world, when I was at Bengage, like you could throw up a piece of SEO content and it would rank like a week later because the competition wasn't there. Or you could throw something up on LinkedIn and you would get a bunch of followers just randomly. But now it's so much harder because it's such anyone can do it. So it's just kind of like overworked right now.
right. The competition is
Yeah,
fierce, and
competitions.
then
Yep.
and with AI can come a lot of slop as well. And so, like,
So
as great
much.
content marketers, have to figure out how do we still make really great content at scale. So I think like our answer here, and as we talk, is this like blossoming field of content engineering in the space that you're in, Ryan.
Hmm.
And get your commentary in a second. Good content really like masters these three things in unison. I think creating and distributing efficiently, especially if you have constraints of a small team, let's say. I think having a really great eye for quality, right? Because you could be, an engineer first, but if you don't have that eye, then the quality of your content just won't perform. And I think the other part is there are often flywheels either in your business model or the content production on your team to take advantage of, because like the point of content engineering here and as a marketing team is just to create radical customer value, especially with AI and automation. Anything you want to add, Ryan?
Yeah, I think the quality bar is like one of the more important things that a lot of like people who are getting into like AI automation content or just creating content with AI don't think about is you kind of have to get the reps in of creating content for a long time to know what works, to know how it all comes together, to know the production steps. You can't just like jump into chat GPT and say, hey, write me a blog post because you'll get the same thing that everybody else is putting out. And that's kind of where content engineering comes in. And it helps you build that quality because it brings in a bunch of different inputs. It brings in your expertise as a content marketer, all those different things to really help you stand above the people that are just chatting with Claude or Chat GPT and saying, hey, write me a blog post and throwing it up on their site.
Yep. Pablo here is asking, what is quality? Man, I think that's one of those hard things to answer, right?
So hard.
It depends. It depends on the format.
Yeah.
I think what you're talking about there, Pablo, storytelling, high impact visuals.
Yeah.
Yes, and all those
Yeah.
things, right?
Having a point of view, being able to bring in customer insights, voice of customer, like anything that makes it your content and not anything that someone else can copy.
Yeah.
I think that's a high
Um,
quality bar that I'm always shooting for.
Totally. And Jeff, you're asking about flywheels. I think we'll cover a couple
We'll
of
talk
those
about it.
in just a second. And I think where there are some opportunities. And again, it just kind of depends on your team, where those might lie, and then how you can plug in and make use of them in a really positive way. I think, Ryan, you and I were talking about mindset as well.
Yeah.
And I think the mindset of content engineering is kind of the mindset of an engineer or an automator by trade, right? It is curious, you're a systems thinker, and you build iteratively. I think folks can kind of read through, but anything you want to highlight here?
Yeah, I think like I've always been a builder. I mean, when I was early in my career, I was automating stuff in Zapier just because I was like, oh, I wonder if I can do that. And so much of the stuff that I build is like, oh, I wonder if I can do that. Even outside of work, like just with my woodworking and stuff that I build.
Hmm.
Um, it's almost like, I bet I could do that. And then it's fun figuring out if you can, and then you learn so much and you upskill so fast. And it's something that you can't really learn in a course. And that's kind of one of my ethos too, is like you just gotta be really curious about the world around you and things that you're building, and you'll start getting better at like your trade, your craft. Um, and then the iterative thing is like everything I'm building, even things that I'm gonna show later today, are work in progress. I'm always making them better. It's not a set it and forget it. You got to say, oh, this came out weird. I want to change it to this and I want to update it. So you're always building. It's not like you're just going to build this workflow and be done. And
Right.
I think that's something that happens with like when you're building content kind of non AI way and you're running through all these processes, you don't take a second to look where they're inefficient or things aren't coming out correctly. You're just running as fast as you can to get things out. And you never kind of look behind you to see like, oh, could have we done that better and improve it?
Totally love that. Jason here is saying that you are his spirit animal. So it sounds like you guys have very similar viewpoints. Al's asking, what's the difference between a content engineer and a content creator? I think this is something we're talking about more and more here at Zapier, where but here's how I would describe it. And I think skill sets are starting to evolve. And what we think about content is the difference, as I would say it, is they can be one and the same. And then what the content engineer will think about is, how do I take one piece of content and make it 10, or make it multiple series, or get it into channels? And I think a great content engineer is really thinking about both production and distribution at the same time. So they're not just creating a great piece of content in isolation and then thinking about distribution. It's actually
100%.
one and the same.
Yeah, and one thing that we're shifting to with the webinars we produce and the content we produce is like thinking how they fit into the flywheels that they're going to go through. So the webinar repurposing one, the social one that I'll show you guys, like we're thinking, how will they be processed through these, and making sure that they're packed with value instead of just kind of like doing it just to do a webinar.
Yeah. And
So
maybe I'll say one more thing, because Kristen is telling us, come on, let's get on to the how. So we'll get going. The last thing to say is, like, I'm totally guilty of being maybe just a content creator at times in my career. And so here at Zapier, we really do say, oh, let's think distribution first, right? And I think
you
that's
have to.
a big thing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a couple examples of some flywheels. I'll go first with Zapier. One of the most innovative parts of all of Zapier is our programmatic SEO for our app integration pages. It's a great example of content engineering. So if you actually go to our app directory, when a new app integration comes on to the Zapier platform, we create a dedicated app integration page. And then we create the multiples of that app paired with every other app.
One. Yeah,
and so
it's
we
crazy.
have like hundreds of millions of pages on the internet just dedicated to our app integration pages, which gives us a huge amount of SEO juice and domain authority. So that is like a really like iconic example of programmatic SEO. You can see a couple more that we do here on the left. Happy to answer questions as we go, but maybe you pick one, Ryan, that you want to highlight just so we can keep things moving.
Yeah, before I jump at that, it's funny because you brought that up, is like one teardown I wrote early in my career was how you guys approach that. And I went through the whole strategy of like how you guys built out the app pages and all that stuff. So it's so funny to kind of come full circle. But on my side, you guys can read this. This is just kind of like mindset building things that I've done. Back in the day, I had this Pinterest hacking thing where I created thousands and thousands of pins. I drove a bunch of organic traffic because I was back in the day when Pinterest was big for Engage, because we're a visual design company. Did some hand repurposing at Reforge, building out the previews, and that kind of led to this Demostack webinar flywheel that we'll show off. It's just like having a bunch of those reps and knowing like, oh, I can stretch this one piece of content into 20 by hand, help me build exactly the flywheels and the processes that I need with AI.
Yeah. And somebody was asking, we're going to really get into content atomization. Somebody was asking in the chat there. Think about it as you take one big piece of content and then you break it down into many pieces optimized for various channels is the fancy word for that. Great. So let's talk about this, because I think like a traditional webinar content flow looks something like this, where you spend all this effort maybe with a customer or a great thought leader or something, and you create this amazing webinar. And from that, you have a transcript, demos, Q&As, visuals. But in truth, all you end up doing is, sending the recording to folks and maybe send a few manual social posts out, right? And this is like, I think what I've been part of lots of marketing teams that end up doing this. Versus, I think what we're going to talk about today and show through your use cases, Ryan, is how do you take all that hard work that went into the webinar and then automatically atomize that content and get it into all the channels or the hands of the channel owners, so that then you can actually put that into your evergreen content strategy. And webinars end up being a great source of material for your evergreen content strategy. And those are not independent things.
Yeah, and it's one thing with webinars. I like doing webinars, podcasts, all that stuff. It's not even about the effort too. You do a ton of effort to get these things off the ground. You spend money on ads, you get people in the funnel, but it's also like the insights in the webinars and these big chunky pieces of content that just get lost kind of to the ether because you haven't done anything. There could be a great customer quote, there could be a great demo in there, and you're just like, oh, I wish I had this cool thing, and it's in your webinar probably that you can repurpose.
Totally. And I see some folks asking again, what are the flywheels here? So there is a
You'll
flywheel
see.
here, right? And I think Ryan will
Yeah.
talk about this. If you have a marketing team that regularly puts on webinars, those are manual processes, right? Of putting them on. But if you have a good cadence, that is a flywheel, which then uh,
Yeah.
you attach yourself to, and then you proliferate the content out. And so that is you leveraging a flywheel to create more content rather than
Mhm.
being in charge of having to create all the content yourself, which we know is very hard. And I think it brings us to the golden rule here, which I know this is something your boss used to say, Ryan, which is,
Yep.
and I amended slightly:
Yeah.
create once, repurpose, redistribute forever.
Yeah. My old boss at Foundation, Ross Simmons, who is like an OG in the repurposing game, he taught me a lot, but he said, create once, distribute forever. And like that just, every time I create it, that's just rattling in the back of my head of like, oh, don't waste this blog post on a single like post. Spin it out into a video, a share, whatever. And same thing with the webinar, same thing with the podcast things that I'm building, all that stuff. It's got value outside of its original form. And you need to kind of like maximize that value.
Totally. Anthony Bourdain, very famous for flywheels, where he's like, oh, the market fish that we bought earlier this week
Yes.
is starting to turn. Instead of throwing the fish out, let's turn it into a stew, and we make it into
Yeah.
a fancy stew, right? So
Yeah.
that's our job as content marketers.
Yeah. I'm a Costco fan. We go way too much, but it's the same thing. They take the rotisserie chicken, they use it in the soup, they do this, they do that. And I'm like, I like efficiency.
Yep. Well, let's get going here and talk
Yep.
about Demostack. We'll go a little bit of context here, and then let's get into the demos here.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about the marketing team at
Yeah,
Demostack?
so Demostack is a full stack demo platform that is good for enterprise teams that are running tons and tons of demos. That you can run live demos, you can run sandbox, you can run tours, you can clone your app in an instant. It's a really cool platform. Our product is really killer. Um, our marketing team is pretty small, and I knew that coming in. Um, and I knew that we had a lot of things to build towards. Um, One thing that we were had an abundance of as I'm going through my onboarding stuff is webinars. We didn't have many thought leaders that we could do a lot with right now, but we had all these webinars we did in the past with all these really smart thought leaders, and that kind of got my brain thinking of like, oh, I'm not an expert in demos or in demo software and stuff like that, but all these people that are in the webinars, that are in these podcasts, that are in these kind of event-based marketing things that we've done are experts. Where can I find insights from them? Where can I repurpose those into things? And that kind of got the thing spinning.
Yep, love it. And I think you posted about this the other day, which is why we're even
Yeah.
doing this webinar, where you kind of outlined the top use cases for
Hmm.
yourself here. And so
Yeah.
really cool to see. Gosh, is this a flywheel where like you post on social, you find out there's a ton of demand for something, and then you create the webinar? And I can tell you, we are going to chop this webinar up into lots of pieces that you and
Oh,
I
same.
can
Yeah.
share
It's
after
it's like
this.
4 months of content for me just from this webinar. Like
Yep.
it's fantastic.
Yep. Well, let's I think like these are some pre-submitted questions from Ellie of like, how do we get into these workflows, suggestions where to begin. And I think like as you think about
We'll
building
answer it here.
things,
Yeah.
very simple framework here if you're new to building and automating, is to think about this as you look at problems and solutions. The best place to start as a good engineer is not on the hardest possible thing. It's to start in this low quadrant, which is like, go find easy wins, go build skills in building, and then
Hmm.
move to the next place, which is an existing content process you have. Experiment, refine that existing process. And then you can go to the, okay, I have AI, I have automation, I have new tools to completely reimagine the work. Then go there and really build these maybe more complete systems. And so the demos we're going to go through today are going to kind of use that framework as we go. Anything you kind of want to give some context here before we dive in?
No, I think this is a really great way to start thinking about stuff. The LinkedIn listening one that we'll go into is one of my favorite apps, and it literally is like 2 or 3 steps together, but it unlocks so many other things. So like that's the other thing I want people to remember is like it might be low, but it unlocks something that's high. And it
Mhm.
helps inform the blog social one, which also helps inform the content factory one. Like there's these small things you can build that just make you a little bit better and a little bit better. And then it makes your kind of more complicated things that you're doing, or even manual processes even better and
Right.
run a little bit more efficiently. So again, don't start with the big one. I built the webinar flywheel first, which was a mistake because I had so many I had so many hurdles I had to come over as I was figuring it out. But then as I figured them out and I'm building the blog social one, that took me a day instead of a week to
Right.
build out because you just learn so much so quickly.
And maybe just at a glance to kind of put those in people's heads of like, how do these 3 use cases we're about to show fit together?
Yep.
You can just explain this kind of simple chart that we have here.
Yeah, so LinkedIn listening links or listens to our LinkedIn page and it just pulls in every new share that we have. We have a couple of people sharing across the team. I don't always see every share that goes in, but it is a good bar of quality for the other models and stuff that we're using. So of like what is a good share, what is our messaging, what is the content we're talking about, and it's always evolving because every new share gets in. So if we shift messaging to this, we shift to that. I'm not pulling information from a messaging doc that was written 2 years ago. It's always kind of up to date. So that kind of informs these other ones. And then the webinar content factory writes, you'll see. It's cool, but it feeds into the blog and social. So we've got this nice little flywheel where we're always pushing something into much bigger pieces than itself.
Totally.
And then one thing that I always want tell people when I'm building this is the outputs are never going to be perfect. Do not publish, don't copy and paste and throw it up there. You could do a little bit of manual work to get them into that 100% place, which is why I build them in these Claude projects because I can get a lot of context in there. And Sonnet 4.5 is pretty good at creative writing compared to some of the other tools I've used. So it's just kind of my go-to of once there's an output, put it in there, get it ready to go, and then I share it to the channel owners or I post it online. So that's a step that I don't want people to forget is there will be some manual improvement. Don't skip that.
Yep. I think these are processes that you are very much baked into yourself. And I think that the mistake here is often thinking a lot of this is set it and forget it. No,
Yeah,
this is
never do that.
actually teeing you up to give your channel owners great work.
Yeah,
Great.
exactly.
Well, I guess we touched on this one. Let's get into the zaps. The people
Okay.
are ready to see stuff. So let's
Yeah.
start with this first LinkedIn listening one that you described. And as you're ready,
Yeah.
go ahead and bring up your
I
screen.
will. Yeah, let me grab it real quick, but I'll give a little context. The kind of pain point for this was I was always referencing shares that we're doing in Claude things or in other chat so chat GPT, just like, oh, this is a good example of it. And I just the copy and pasting, the finding it, the looking for it, all that was a pain. But now that it's in this database on Notion, I can just ping it from whatever tool I'm on because I've got the integration set up. So it just makes kind of like that annoying bottleneck that you run into that takes 5 or 10 minutes out of your day to go find. It's just instant. So
Yeah.
that was kind of the goal with that, and it's kind of grown to inform a lot of the other things. But it's really simple. Like that's what I like about it. It just does the one thing really well instead of trying to do too many things. So every time, can we see this now? Okay, perfect. So
Yep.
every time the Demostack LinkedIn page posts, it pings this RSS feed, which I set up just like an RSS feed listener. There's a free tool that you can use, gives you a link, and then every time your page, I don't know if it'll work for personal because LinkedIn's a little weird with like personal accounts and like if they're public or not, but it works for company pages. So every time a new share happens, it pings this RSS. We're listening to it at all times. It goes into this step where it goes and gives the share a nice grade on based on our messaging docs and all that stuff, and then it will give an actual rewrite. So I'm repurposing the share as it's being kind of shared too. So it's always repurposing, and then it just drops it in this Notion database, which I was talking about, which is right here. It's just a really simple Notion database. It's got all the shares. It's got when it was posted. It's got a link to it. It's got the verdict on if it was good, bad, medium, a score, and then it does the rewrite too, or the reason the reason we thought it was good because it matches the content values, trust expertise, that kind of stuff, and then it does a rewrite right in the database, which I can be like, oh, we need another share in a week. Got one right here.
Yep.
Perfect. So
And
it's
Ryan,
just go ahead.
you basically set this database up to
Yeah.
basically be a trainable database, one that's learning as you go, because you're pointing other workflows and zaps at it, and then
Yeah.
AI
Always
gets to
updating. Yep.
reference what's scoring well and going to start writing content that way, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like my biggest piece of advice for people getting like into this is like use the tools you have. I love Notion. It works super well, Chat GPT and Claude. And you can build some kind of quasi rags with these databases that work instead of like spending, because I spent like a long time trying to get the webinar one to work in I think it was Llama Cloud. And I was just like, that was wasted time. Let me just make sure it works here. And then we can build it into something more complex when we need like a little bit more nuance or more information or stuff like that. So just build with what you have is a good kind of starting point too.
Cool. And there's a couple questions in there about the RSS feed. That's just native to Zapier. That's a action or a trigger, excuse me, that you can just add right in Zapier. So you don't need a specific RSS tool or anything like that, right? That's just something you do in Zapier.
Yeah, for that one, I set it up. I think it's literally was just called like rss.com, which is something like that. I think it's just like a something that is always listening, just so it could be, like I said, always listening to it. But yeah, the RSS thing is a trigger. So all you have to do is copy the link in there and then it runs. Like it's that easy. You get the RSS feed, you dump it in there. And you can do that probably for your blog post too if you have an RSS feed or if you want stuff like that. So it's just these triggers can be kind of pretty malleable to what you need them to do.
Right. There's a couple of questions about like Google Sheets versus Notion. Any specifics there that you want to call out of, why Notion or why not Google Sheets or something like that?
I just have always built in Notion. I know how it works. I mean, it's where I'm comfortable. And like, I know it's a spreadsheet, but it doesn't look like a spreadsheet when you're in it all day. And like, it's just a little bit more visually appealing to me. But for some reason, ChatGPT and Claude ping these databases a little bit more accurately. It's above my pay grade for why that works, but I found that they just work a little bit better. I don't know if it's because they build the databases differently, but I've just had better success with when I'm like trying to pull something as I'm writing from Claude or whatever, and I drop the link, it goes it and finds it really quick. So that's just my expertise. I don't think you can't build them in Google Sheets, but this is just how I build them.
Yeah, and just from experience, Google Sheets versus Notion, Airtable, Coda, etc. Like I think some of those that have a little bit more of a relational database are a little bit easier to work with, just in terms of things like field mapping across.
Yep.
As well. So there's a little bit of it's just a little bit more dynamic for you to leverage as you go.
Exactly. Yeah, you can do a little bit more than just dump information in a spreadsheet.
Right. All right. Well, we covered that one. I'm a little behind on the slides here. Let's talk about what that's informing. And the first one is this kind of blog post draft to social posts, which is really at the end of the day generating distribution copy for you.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Let me grab it real quick. So this is one I built a couple days ago. Actually, I rebuilt it. So it was built a week or two ago, and I didn't like what it was outputting. The outputs were way too similar. So I put my thinking hat on and was like, I know how to rebuild it, and I'll show you kind of what those differences are. But this is, I call it our blog to social path, and it takes any Notion draft that we're working on and can turn it into 4 different unique pieces of social content. I wanted it to be triggered by Notion because that's where our drafts live. I didn't want to have to wait to have a website or a live piece of content to feed it. And like one thing that I'm big on, and I kind of wrote about it a while ago, was like this idea of like reactive versus active repurposing. And this is like active repurposing, where you're setting your content up for success by repurposing it before it's even launched. And a lot of people will launch a piece of content, say, oh, our customers love this, and scramble to repurpose it, and it never really gets done. So this idea of like actively repurposing it as you're producing it and building out all these different kind of pieces of content is super important and informs a lot of the things that I build.
Totally. And Ryan, would you just do it like a zoom in?
Oh yeah.
We got a couple folks who want to just get a little bit.
Sorry.
Perfect. That's
So one of the reasons I build in Zapier is the interfaces. I love these interfaces. They're so simple. They trigger so nicely. You can pass them off to your team. You can build them in 2 seconds. You don't have to have some weird webhook that you built that listens to something that doesn't exist over there. And it's all in Zapier. So this interface kicks off the Zap, another interface kicks off the webinar one. Like, it's just a great way to build, because if I pass this to someone who doesn't have access to our Zapier, they can still run it. Like, they can drop the blog title, they can do the Notion link, they can submit it for review, and at the end it'll ping me and say, hey, all your stuff is done. So big fan of Zapier interfaces. From that Zap, I create a data source item in my Notion database. And then this thing, this pulls out the ID code, because sometimes it just doesn't, Notion doesn't want to pass you the actual link. It goes in and grabs all the page content. So it goes to this post right here, grabs all of that, including the markdown, including the formatting, including everything. One thing that it does, which isn't anyone's fault, is it grabs the images as well and some of the kind of like metadata. So I have this step in here that goes in, strips out all that extra stuff, and just leaves the markdown, because I've noticed that you can burn credits, you can burn tokens, just like by leaving that in. So I'm just trying to make it really efficient for when I pass it to this AI step, instead of just giving it like a bunch of extra links that don't matter, a bunch of metadata, a bunch of stuff that it can't use. I'd rather just give it a nice clean markdown doc. And that's what this step 5 does, is strips out all that content, makes it really nice.
right. You're just trying to make sure you don't confuse the AI with.
Exactly. Yeah. You want to give it a clean, you don't want to burn credit, or you don't want to burn tokens as it's trying to like figure out what this is. Should it pay attention to this link? Do I need to go do something else? So that's a step that I recommend to a lot of people, is just make sure that your content that you're passing is super clean and the AI can read it. From there, it goes in and grabs like a bunch of themes from the actual content. So the themes include, like, here, we can just look at it right now.
Yeah.
Like,
showing off some of the prompt itself will be helpful.
Yeah. So it goes in and grabs all this stuff. So the angle, the core idea, why it matters, any evidence it has. Like, I'm basically building context as I pass through these different AI steps about the blog post, but it's broken down into nice little readable chunks, instead of trying to be like, hey, AI step, read this 2,000 word blog post, summarize it, think about what would make a good LinkedIn share, think about what would do well for our audience, all that stuff. I'm breaking it down into a bunch of different inputs, so I can kind of like bring it back together at the end. So that's what that does, is it pulls out kind of like the themes of the content, any quotes, any pieces of data that we've talked about, stuff like that.
And one thing, Ryan, I'll
ahead.
comment, just seeing a little chat in here, because obviously you've been building with Zapier for a while, and
Yeah.
I think there are some advanced concepts here that you're showing, which I think shows some of the potential. And then for folks that are a little bit newer, and Ryan, maybe you can just pop this open to show kind of where it is. The Copilot can be really helpful to build your kind of it's basically an assistant that builds with you, and I think
it's really slick. Yeah,
it works great for generating steps. It works great for troubleshooting steps, and it particularly works great for field mapping. So
I use it so much for field mapping. Yeah,
that might see some concepts that are a little advanced. This is actually a really helpful assistant where you can kind of just ask it what you want it to do step by step, and it's going to do a pretty darn good job of helping you get there. So for folks wondering about that, just wanted to shout that out as we kind of continue to go through the flow here.
Yeah, I always, if something breaks, I go to Copilot first, and then if that can't figure it out, which it usually does, I'll just jump into ChatGPT and just basically give it the problem that I'm running into. What other Ryan said was, it is great for mapping input fields. Some of my other flows have like 15 or 20 input fields, and like anytime I change one thing, I used to have to go in and like X all of them out and then put them all in, and then I can just talk to the Copilot and say, here's everything that I want mapped for step 6, put it in there from steps or 5, and I'm off to the races. So there's just those little things that can improve your efficiency are really helpful when you're like building these massive things, because they add up. I mean,
they do.
10 minutes figuring that out, you're like, and it just kind of breaks your flow too, when you're like, oh, I know what to do, but I have to map all these things. And
Field
great.
mapping is the thing that just like always was hard. It just always was hard for me,
Yeah.
and Copilot really does simplify it quite a bit.
Yes. Yeah, and then this code by Zapier step goes in and splits out all of those outputs from the previous step into actual chunky things that I can pass. So like angle one, the JSON has all the information that gets passed down to the writer in a little bit. Um, this one, this retrieve block children step actually goes out and looks at our content guidelines and our pain point database and pulls in information that is relevant to what the piece of content is about. So it'll go out, it'll grab this piece of text, it'll render it markdown. Um, maybe, maybe I can't show it. It'll render the markdown, and then it'll inform this next step. So you can see that the input is the angles, the blog headers, which pulled out in an earlier step, and then the full markdown of our messaging doc, which can then be used, can be kind of pinged by this AI step, and then you're kind of building with better context instead of just being like, hey, I'm a SaaS company. You've got your messaging doc, you've got your content guidelines, you've got all these things, and you can even put in stuff that's a little bit more informative, or like you can build it for like this one has to be about this ICP, and then you can build another flow that's this one is about this ICP and stuff like that. So just pulling things into Notion that you already have exist into these workflows is pretty easy. You just got to know where to use it.
Yeah, and I think just to underline that angles piece, that is such a slick way of using AI, because you and I have talked about this, Ryan. What essentially you're doing is just trying to get different perspectives so
Yes,
that
exactly.
you can then go pick the best one or the best two or what have you, but you don't have to
Exactly.
generate them yourselves, which is a lot of the effort, the work. And
Yeah.
you're letting an AI take care of that so you can pick the best one.
Exactly. I'm kind of offloading that mental load of like, I got to read this whole thing. I got to look through all of this. And if I haven't written the content, I'm not super familiar with it. If I've written it, I'm like, oh, I know what I want to talk about. But if it's just coming in blind, you lose a lot of kind of mental capacity thinking about how I'm going to write these shares. So yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of breaking it down into a bunch of options for you. So next up, these content packs are actually what the AI steps, which we'll see in a little bit, actually uses. So it writes 4 different content packs. They're basically like prompts that I can give the AI steps later for each of the angles. That includes all the quotes that we talked about, all the evidence, all the frameworks, all those different things. Um, and then just cleans and organizes those. Those are don't be afraid to use a code by Zapier step to make your output and input to different AI steps a little cleaner, because it'll save your brain, it'll save your sanity to just be like, I will add one more step that cleans it up and makes it easy for the other things to read.
Ryan, are you writing the code yourself or are you generating it?
No, I can do HTML and CSS, but it's mostly all generated. I know enough to be dangerous and know when things are like broken in like some of like the Python and the JavaScript to be like, oh, that's not going to work because I've done it enough. But like I use ChatGPT or I use Claude or I use some of these coding assistants to write it. And like if you tell it what you want to do, you can get pretty close to like the code you need. So I am not that technical. I'm technical, but not that kind of technical.
Yep.
And as you can see, we've been building towards this with all the steps. We've got 4 different angles. We've got 4 different shares that are going to happen. We've got 4 different AI steps that go in and write individual shares. When I built this originally, it was a loop, and it would just pass every angle and it would just loop back up. And for some reason, I don't know if it's just like I was stressing I was stressing out the AI model that I was using. Almost all the shares kind of like went towards the middle. Like they all felt very, very similar. And I didn't like that because the whole idea was give me like 4 different angles. So this is why I rebuilt in this kind of 4-path way. It looks complicated, but it's worth it when you're getting the output that you want. So as you can see, each time you get to this point, it'll write 4 different shares. And then once it's done, it'll phone a friend, which means it'll send me a Slack message that says, hey, your shares are done. Check them out here, which gets dumped into this database. And as you can see, I've been running a lot of tests and stuff recently, but like these shares are pretty good. They're almost ready to go in LinkedIn, but I will always dump them in the cloud and be like, where should I improve the hook? Should I have a better call to action? And as you look through, like these first 4 right here, all from the same piece of content, and each of the shares are unique enough that that they can kind of stand on their own. And what happened with some of the earlier stuff I was building is like they all kind of sounded the same. Like they all had the same cadence and stuff like that. So like splitting it out into these different 4 steps really helped me find those unique angles and also find that unique voice that using the loop, the same kind of prompt over and over again, which I've seen people do, it doesn't allow you to do that.
Yeah, and Kim, you're asking here, how are the posts sounding different? Ryan's got different prompts basically that are giving those different
Yeah.
angles.
So here you can see the angle that it was based on. Like that's how much information it's passing to the AI step, but it's still a lot less than the entire post. That's what I like too, is I can just pass this prompt to the AI step, the AI writer step. It has all the information it needs, and it doesn't have to go ping the entire blog post and get lost and burn credits. And you've got whatever 2,000 characters going in, which is how many other tokens that you're burning. So, yeah.
And so just to play this back, essentially what's happening here is automatically and pretty much instantly, you are popping a draft of a blog post into the interface with the title, and then you're walking away with a Slack message that basically has 4 different angles with copy, social copy, to distribute that post.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And then I can pass it to Claude. I can pass it to our social people. I can be like, some of them are almost like they're like 95% there. Some are like 80% there. But I jump in the Claude. I've got projects. If I've been working on a blog post from the webinar, I've already got a project built that has all the transcript, all the information, and I can beef it out. If I want it up to like 250 words, I can cut it down. I can do a lot with just that. And I can go from like 0 posts to probably like 4 ready to go in 10 or 15 minutes, which is like crazy fast compared to like doing it manually.
And a couple of people are asking, this process is a concept, right? So you could do this for images as well, just with a different set of apps, right? So any app, image generation apps that you have that connect with Zapier, you could also attempt this concept.
You could attempt it. Yeah, for sure. I think that AI works really well with text. I haven't done deep, image stuff yet, but you could. I mean, it would burn so many more credits, but you could.
Well, let's go. We got it's 10:42
Okay.
here in the West Coast. So let's get to the last one here, because I think one thing for everyone to connect is, where is that blog draft coming from? And so now you can kind of talk about the atomization from webinars that you're doing that actually does feed those blog drafts.
Yep. So this is what I've shared. This is what I shared. Let me scroll in a little bit. To kick this whole thing off, because I was honestly, I was super proud of it, but I also didn't think anybody would care. And as I can see, a lot of people cared. So that's really cool. But this one uses the same kind of kickoff as the social one. So we'll skip a few things because it's built in similar ways. You've kind of got the idea of the concepts, but all you have to do is drop the link in there. It kicks it off. It adds all that information to this nice webinar tracker that I built, which is pretty deep. I mean, it's got a bunch of links going out to it. It's got all the information I can need, and I can access it. That's one thing that I like about these is you're not losing drafts. You're not losing ideas to the ether. It's always here. You're not like, it's not because it's in a chat that you can't find, or it's just slowly moving up the feed that you can never find again. You always have access to it, which is kind of why I built this. I like having a paper trail. I like knowing what the output is so I can go and fix it if it's bad. Again, goes and grabs the transcript from that Notion, extracts the text from it, does a basic webinar analysis, and then it does a detailed content extraction. So again, this is building this context before you go and push I think it's like you can have like 90,000 characters in a webinar if you do it for 60 minutes. So that's a ton of context that you're trying to push to a writing step or a creation step. So you just got to build those inputs and kind of like tell a story. And that's what these 2 steps do. So they go in and strip out a bunch of interesting stuff from it, like we saw with the prompt packs, where it looks at the key themes, it breaks down the webinar, pulls any quotes out, looks at any frameworks, any playbooks, stuff like that, stuff that would make a blog post kind of sing and different than just like a summary blog post. Like I built this to create thought leadership content. I didn't want it to go out and just summarize the webinar. So that's kind of the idea behind all of this information. It can kind of start to build that context as you're passing it, and you don't have to do all of that hard work with one AI step.
Yeah. Could you show Ryan the difference kind of just between the basic webinar analysis and the detailed one? Just in terms of the prompt and then how that connects to that Notion
Yeah,
document?
let me pull it back. So the basic one, it really focuses more on just like pulling like high level stuff, like who's it for, what the speakers are, any themes, does the breakdown, and any notable quotes. Because that's like stuff that is pretty basic that you can find, and it uses a slightly lower cost model. The detailed one, I think it runs on 4.1 just because, oh, it's 4.0 mini, but it goes in and does all the kind of like full stack webinar searching, because like a framework isn't going to be a little snippet here. It's going to go through the entire thing. The playbook is going to be something that goes through the entire thing too. So like the the first basic one is just kind of like finding small things here and there. And the second one is like, what is the theme across the whole thing that we can kind of turn into a bigger blog post? What is this 5-step framework they talk about for the demo? Can we turn that into a blog post? Stuff like that.
Love it. I think that's great. And I think hopefully everyone gets a sense of why you broke those 2 steps out. It's just so that the AI has really specific
Really
jobs.
tight, yeah, really tight idea of what it needs to output. And because it used to just be one step and I'd get like, and like I'm all about over engineering these things because like the credits are pretty cheap when you're running them not that often. So spend the time to build multiple steps instead of just trying to do everything with one AI step.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then creates a webinar analysis page. You've already seen that. Adds to the content tracker, which is this thing. So like I said, I got a paper trail of everything that happens in this entire Zap. Um, so I can reference it later, stuff like that. From there, it takes all that information and it creates 3 pitches. Um, I built it so the first pitch focuses on frameworks. The other one is a narrative recap. So like, what was the story of it? And then a wildcard pitch. I was telling Ryan that I'm obsessed with most of the wildcard pitches because it just kind of goes crazy. It like does something that you don't think about instead of just like the perfect one. Like it makes you think outside the box. And usually those are the ones that I run with, which is so funny.
Yeah, and just
Um,
to underline that for everyone, because I think that's another important point where Ryan's showing the showcase of not necessarily having the AI be right and write the perfect recap from a webinar, actually having it pitch 3 different kinds of posts that you could follow up with
3
here.
approaches. Yeah.
One that's very playbook focused, one that is very like just a summary of the webinar,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
this wild card, which is like, let's let the AI get a little crazy and see maybe it comes up with some gold that you never would
Exactly.
have thought of in the first place.
Yeah, and it's when you're doing this thought leadership, you kind of need the wild card. You kind of need the thing that pushes back against just like here's how to run a demo, which is hundreds of pieces of content out there. So, and I'll show you one of the pitches that comes from there. So from there, as you can see, I love paths because you can use all this context that you built already instead of wasting credits and tokens to inform the other stuff. Like all the clips and the social and the pitch all pull from the analysis and the kind of context that I've already built. So from there in the pitch creates 3 outlines. I'll show you an outline in a second. Um, Obviously this is like the framework, the summary, and then the wildcard. Just writes it all to Notion and then adds it to the content tracker. So I've got all the pitches that I could want right here. And then one thing that I like about it is if I pick pitch 3 today, I can go back and pick pitch 1 in 2 months, and it's still relevant content. I just didn't pick it today, but it's still useful, and it still can use the transcript to inform it. So we can pull 3 blog posts or more out of just a single webinar.
Yeah, and I think that underlines another really important concept here, which is play the hits. You
Yeah,
know, like if content from this webinar, if the webinar did well, and then the first iteration of content from this webinar did well,
yeah,
do it again
it's
next
probably going
month.
to do well. Exactly.
And maybe do
Yeah,
it 3 times a year or what have you, right? And I think
exactly.
this also goes for, you might have a whole library at your company of previous webinars, right?
Which we
So
do. Yeah, we have
you
20,
just work through
25
those.
that yeah that haven't really we didn't really do anything other than do the webinar and send the email, and I'm just turning them in these massive kind of content flywheels and campaigns and stuff like that. um, and then here's what a pitch looks like. It is basically just kind of like a really tight outline that I can use in Claude Code, not Claude Code, I can use in Claude projects to beef out to a 2,000, 3,000 word blog post, because I can pull in all of our messaging doc, our pain point database, our transcript, anything that can help inform that. And then that helps us write pretty chunky piece of content. This is what it becomes, this really deep piece of content where it's very unique. I mean, we're talking about how to be a gardener, or how to think about demos as a gardener does. Like that was something that Sam who led the webinar at our team talked about, and I'm like, that's actually really cool. That's a great way to think about it, and I don't think I would have went that angle without this process.
Right.
Yeah,
Tim here is asking too. I think this is a good way. I'll connect the dot, and then you can answer Kim's question about what's in the Claude project.
yeah,
What you leave here with is these pitches, and then
yep,
you've got a Claude project trained to write in your company's voice and tone, to
yes,
write in a certain format, etc. Right?
etc. Yeah. So one unlock that I had recently is like for every piece of content, every piece of chunky content, so blog posts, webinars, or stuff like that, I create a new project, and it kind of creates like a clean room. I upload almost the exact same information. I add the relevant transcript, the relevant blog post, but then it doesn't like trip over stuff that is done in the past. It almost starts anew. So like the content you get out isn't based off something that you've done in the past. Like it just keeps things moving a little bit more cleanly, and you're not like redoing work because you're like, oh, that's the output you gave me 2 weeks ago. It's just this nice kind of disconnected thing.
Yeah, and this is the human in the loop process where
Yes.
you could build a system that probably automates all these pieces
Yeah, but
together.
I don't want
But I
to.
think for
Yeah.
you, it's really important to get back to that quality piece we talked about originally.
Yeah.
You are taking so much legwork out of this process, but it still comes back to you to judge
Using my content brain.
what's the best content. Yep, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. And then final things we can go through really quick, which I said you build the context so we can have a clip doc. So let me pull that up. From there, it goes in and finds the clips that you want. It gives a description, a title, and then I can just feed this to the Descript bot, and it'll go and cut those really cleanly for me. It's pretty good. It could be better. I want it to be almost exact, but it gets you where you need to be with a lot of these clips.
Yeah.
And then final thing is the social one, where go ahead.
Oh
Ryan.
yeah, and I was going to say we're actually doing with the Descript team. We're going to do some content engineering webinar. It's not up yet, but in January. So Ryan, that might be
Okay.
one to attend as well.
Yeah, tag me in. I've got some
For,
ideas.
for you, yeah, totally.
And then
Keep going. Sorry, I cut you
I
off.
was gonna say, final thing is it grabs social angles. So one thing that I didn't want it to do in this flow, which I might add the social flow that I built for the blog post to this, is I didn't want it to go too deep into the weeds and try to write the actual social post, because I am feeding it 90,000 characters, like a lot of content, and it will just kind of like sputter out trying to do too many things at once. Instead, what I did was use those context building documents that we had, as well as the transcript, to focus on like a framework I could write about, a data or customer story, the wildcard one. So the hub spoke playbook model, which is something that Sam also invented, the hot take, and then the quote. So it goes out and finds these frameworks or these angles that we can use, and then I can dump them in the Claude project that I'm already working on, turn them into full shares. So yeah,
Love it.
that's that. Oof.
Such a cool one, and I think really highlights like this is a system you have built, in a way that totally makes sense to me, but is also specific to you in wanting
Yep.
to maintain a high bar of quality. And I want to underline that piece of it because you can get really far with automation, but at the end of the day, you can't delegate the accountability of the quality of the content to the AI. Like it comes back to you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all, I'm always using my content brain. I think that's kind of what makes me a killer content engineer, is I have that experience on top of automation.
Great. Just to underline the pro tip here, I won't say it again, but y'all have a sense of this. We've got 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
There are questions I want to go to. Hopefully folks have felt like we've answered a lot as we went. So I'm going to pop over into the questions tab. As I do that, I'm actually going to run a poll here because it sounds like folks do want some more detail. Is the poll coming up on screen here? Do you see that, Ryan?
I'm just seeing pre-submitted questions. Am I looking in the wrong place? Oh, wait, there it is. Yes, there it is. It's right next to questions. So submit
Great.
your vote.
Leah, maybe you can help me pull that up. I'm struggling right now.
I got it. Oh, now it's gone.
There.
Oh, there it is. Would you attend a 60-minute build along workshop with Ryan where he leads you through a build of one of these apps? It says
Yes.
54 and it's at 100. It's 100%. Everyone's saying yes.
Okay. Interesting. Great. I figured that was the case, but I wanted to check. Great. And then just a couple things before we dive into the live Q&A. Tomorrow, we have a public company all hands. If you want to come hear from our Chief People and AI Transformation Officer and our CEO on Zapier's internal 2026 AI transformation strategy. Going to be a really cool session where you kind of see the sausage making here at Zapier and how we're thinking about that for our company. And then also, if you want to connect with Ryan as well, hit him up in his DMs, connect with him on LinkedIn. I'm sure he would love to follow up with all of you. Let's get into the questions, Ryan.
Yeah. And if I don't hit your question, hit me up on LinkedIn. I love talking about this stuff.
Great. Let's start here because we covered this a little bit, but I think this is a good one to underline. You are a tiny marketing team, right? You are a content team of one.
Yeah, I'm content team of one.
You can just talk about that for a moment.
Yeah. So one thing that me and Ryan were talking about this week was look for places on your team where you have an abundance of either content, insights, data, anything like that, and start there. Take that abundance and try to make it into other stuff. Like at Demostack, we had an abundance of webinars that we weren't really doing anything with. I knew that there was gold, there was quotes, there was insights in all of those. And like that kind of kicked off this entire thought process. I didn't set out to build a webinar repurposing flow. I was like, oh, we can use this for other stuff. How do I run this at scale? And it kind of just grew from there.
Love it. And I think, maybe I'll say for a larger marketing team, for folks that are there also, like we have lots of teams that create content and often they're creating content for specific channels. And so like part of the content engineering jobs there is like when you actually have an abundance, but a lot of it may stay in one channel only. So the goal is to go out and get that content and then bring it to others. And that's a great problem to have, but you're at a bigger company and marketing's doing a ton of stuff and a lot of it ultimately goes to die instead of bringing it to life.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we got at least time for one or two more here. This is a great one to answer here. And from your perspective, Ryan, is just you've built some amazing systems. Can you just talk about the cost a little bit?
I mean, other than Zapier stuff, I optimize all my flows to run on the cheaper models. So like I think over a month I spent 33 cents, like I'm not joking, on OpenAI credits. Like it's as long as you know to optimize for the models that you're using, you can go for some of the cheaper ones. 4.1 Nano is great at going through all this massive like webinar stuff. It does great because it's kind of got a bigger window that you can push stuff in. But then for 4.1, like it's really good at writing. So I use that for the social writing, but it's only outputting a couple hundred tokens or a couple hundred tokens at once. So it's not that expensive. Like it's really cheap. Like this is probably cheaper than most of like the AI content creation tools that you go and like pay $50 a month for, and you get not as great kind of content from it. So like you can really build it to fit your workflows. And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm not using the most expensive Gemini 3 that costs $100 a run or whatever. So yeah, it's cheap.
And one thing
cost shouldn't be an issue. Yeah.
One thing to highlight there, you're using the AI by Zapier step, which is native to Zapier. And within that, there is a model picker in there.
Yes.
So to Ryan's point, that's how you can choose different models for different AI steps using that. You can also call in those models directly.
I just find the Zapier one so much easier to use.
Yeah, and that one has some like a prompt wizard and things like that. So if you're not as savvy about your prompts, you can get some help baked into Zapier.
And it helps you map outputs a lot easier than like losing your mind over JSON being correct. So that's really nice too.
Great. Gosh, we have 1 minute left. I'm looking for like a quick one. I think maybe where I'll end here is we don't have templates for Ryan's workflows, but Ryan, maybe you and I can consider how we might be able to do that and share that with folks. Afterwards, I hear folks that want to like get into the weeds a little bit more and see if they can build what you've done.
Yeah, I would say just reach out to me on LinkedIn. This one's like very, very custom built for Demostack, so I can't really share it. Like it is built for running on Demostack, but I can teach you kind of or show you how to get started and like melding of the minds of like where I learned things, where I fell down, kind of not make the same mistakes I have. But like, yeah, that's probably the best way to kind of figure out how to start building your own workflows. Also, I'm a big fan of starting from scratch. This is why I don't like using N8N, because they're so template based, but I like having kind of like a blank thing because it's building custom for me. I don't want to use somebody else's system. Um, because then you're just kind of like filling in boxes instead of like thinking about the systems.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's great advice, and you really learn. And it's always, even if you don't build something successful the first time, you're learning skills,
Yeah,
and so it's
my
time
social
well spent.
first, yeah, just like I mess up all the time. My social flow that I built that I thought was going to be perfect outputted stuff that I could get directly from ChatGPT just by saying write me a 4 share. So
Yeah,
if you fall down, get back up, keep building, learn from your mistakes, and then just kind of like ask for help. Ask your team where there's inefficiencies, where we have way too much content. Are you doing too many blog posts and not turning into social or videos or stuff like that? Just look for that abundance and then start there.
yeah. Well, that is a perfect place to end. This is our first pancake on the topic. Hopefully it went well for everybody. Got some inspiration, some takeaways. Ryan, thank you so much for
This is
joining us.
amazing. Yeah,
Really cool to see the stuff that you built, and I think we'll do more like these, but we'll end it here today. So thank you everyone for tuning in.
awesome. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, ping me on LinkedIn. That's the best place to connect, and I'll be sharing stuff too from my page, so that's a good place to look as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody.
Bye, y'all.